If you're thinking about quitting your job and changing careers, this video is going to be bad news for you, because I'm going to prove you that it's possible and worth it. Hello my friends, welcome to this channel. I'm Christina, I'm a dentist based in Dresden, Germany, and today I'll share the story of how I left my corporate job, went back to school at 27 and completely changed my life. So make sure you stick around until the end to find out if I'll do it all over again and what you can learn from my journey. So before I made that change, I was living in Helsinki in Finland, and I was working there for a Finnish design company called Iittala, and I was working in their e-commerce team. So it was a very standard, so to say, 9-to-5 corporate job that I landed after having graduated from business school. I really liked that job, I have to say. It's not like I was dreading going to work and I absolutely despised it, because I really liked the company that I was working for. I still do. I really liked the team that I was working with, and I also really enjoyed my day-to-day tasks. So it's not like I changed jobs from a point of absolutely hating it, having an awful boss. These types of things didn't really apply, but it was more like a feeling that I hadn't really fulfilled something that was actually more of my childhood dream, which was being a dentist. In a way, I had always wanted to be a dentist from when I was a child. I just didn't really think that it is something I could do. I didn't have anyone in my family who was working in the medical field. They're all doing something film, radio, media related. So I didn't really think, for what reason ever, that this sort of job path would be available to me. So when I was approaching the end of high school, my problem was that I didn't really know what else to do, because I thought I wasn't good enough for dentistry school, which I probably wasn't at the time, because I was quite a mediocre or basic student, so to say, with, you know, I didn't have bad grades, but I had average grades. So, and in order, well, as it is in every country, in order to get into dentistry school, you have to have the bestest of the best grades, and that just wasn't me at a time, because, to be honest with you, I didn't put in the work. And so I felt that that path had been closed off sort of for good, and in a way I had felt quite resentful about that. So whenever I was joking with my friends, I would say something like, oh, I should have just become a dentist, you know? Or like when I was complaining about my job, it would be like, oh, why didn't I just go to dentistry school? So I just didn't think I could do it, or that would be an option for me. But yeah, as I said, it was always something where I was a bit regretful, or thought, oh, I should have just done that, or why haven't I tried it? But then at the same time, I was a very stuck-up 20-something-year-old. So my vision of life was quite set and strict. Maybe you have the same, where, you know, I looked down on people who were older and went back to university, because I was thinking, oh, by that time, you know, you should have figured it out. Like, you're in the end of your 20s, you should know who you are, what you want to do, what your career should be like, and you shouldn't, you know, start all over and go back to university. I really don't know what had set up this way of thinking, because it is so narrow-minded and so untrue, and basically it goes against everything that I'm thinking of today. And so that was me in my early 20s. Very judgmental, very stuck up, very unflexible. I was a weird 20-something-year-old, I have to say. Or maybe I wasn't, maybe it's normal, but I felt quite strict about that. So yeah, the idea that I would have to go back to university at a later age was just no way. And so I had my job, was complaining about that, feeling resentful, thinking I should have gone and do something else. There were a few things that did not fully resonate with me in my corporate job, and that was, it sounds really silly, but very mundane things like working in front of a computer on a daily basis. Like, I have to say, even though I maybe had work experience of 3 to 4 years, already at that point I was thinking it feels so silly to be sitting in front of a computer every day. And I'm not looking down on these jobs at all. It just that I felt that I'm not motivated enough, or didn't really see myself doing that for the rest of my working life. And at the same time, I found it quite demotivating not to really know what my work contributes to. Like, of course, when you work in e-commerce, you have numbers that you can measure your success upon, but at the same time, you never really see how you're affecting people's lives. And I have to say, all of that combined made me feel like maybe I hadn't really chosen a good path for myself. Then something quite funny happened. I went on holiday with my best friend. We went to Sicily and I was pulling off my classic, oh, I should have just become a dentist. And then my friend was like, but then maybe you should become a dentist. And I remember I was 26 at the time. I had graduated from business school a year before that. And so the idea of going back to university to pursue another 5-year degree was just out of the question. And so I had my usual defense mechanisms of, what are you talking about? I'm way too old. I was 26. I can't just, go back to university for 5 years. I'm just not good enough to ever get in. And also, I suck at natural sciences. You have these things that are ingrained from school where, teachers back in the days would say stuff like either you're a language person or you're a natural sciences person. And since I was good at languages, I naturally thought, well, that must mean I'm not good at natural sciences, which is complete BS thinking back, but I feel like a lot of people were brought up like that. So I had all my ready-made excuses that I could present my best friend very easily, and she would just not listen to it. She was like, no, first of all, you're not too old. It's just 5 years. 5 years is not 10 years, and those years will pass by quickly. Life is short, you should just do it. She had a really good idea. In order to make it less dreadful, why don't you just apply? And then maybe you're gonna get a rejection letter, and that's good because then you can say you've tried and then you could just file it away. That's it. No need to longer, think about it. Or it would work out. And I really liked that approach because it would just, you could just test the water a little bit. And so then I got back to Helsinki and I started looking into the process of what it's like to apply to dentistry school, what are the requirements. I'm not going into it on full detail because it's so boring, but since I had never studied at a German university before, it meant that I still have all my points from high school. And back in the days, you got points for waiting a certain amount of semesters. And for me, those points were quite high. And so just by looking at the entry requirements, it became quite obvious quite quickly that my chances of getting in are actually really high, to the point that I almost got a heart attack because it meant that I had to probably make a decision. But, I was just thinking, good. I'll apply, let's see what happens. I don't know what the application process in Germany is like now, but back in the days, you had to make a ranking of all the universities that, you'd be interested into getting into. And you could also tick a box that said you can also suggest any other university should another university have a spot ready for me. So that was, I think, autumn 2016. And then I think I received an answer by the end of 2016 that I got into dentistry school in Nuremberg for the summer semester 2017. And I was really shocked because, thinking about something is one thing, taking action is another thing, but then making a decision is a completely different story. This decision meant so much. I was mortified because making a decision would mean quitting my job, moving countries, moving cities, moving away from my apartment, my friends, everything I had basically worked for the past 6-7 years at that point. And keep in mind, I was a stuck-up 20-something-year-old who was thinking life should only, progress in a linear fashion, where if you change something, it should be an add-up to what you had previously done. So my life was going a bit like this, if you think. And then I had this vision in my head that would tell me that if I went to dentistry school, it would somehow, it had gone like this and then it would just plummet like that. And to me, that was just so dreadful. And then at the same time, you have to understand, going back to university doesn't mean that you have a regular income, right? Which is a no-brainer, but that was actually something I was really, really terrified of because I had no idea how to finance the whole thing. And so I decided not to go and felt quite happy about that because it meant that I could just, stick my head back into the sand and ignore the whole thing. But it was obvious that I'm gonna try again. So I did it again. And then I got into dentistry school at the Technical University in Dresden for the winter semester 2017. Then it was like, okay, this is the second chance, and for some reason it had felt better at this point because I had enough time to maybe familiarize myself with the idea. So with a little bit more time and also time to get used to this whole change mentally, I was able to take that spot and give it a go. But you know, getting a second chance didn't mean that all of the questions I had beforehand would just go away. So I still had to think about how am I going to finance the whole thing. And that was something I found really difficult to find an answer to, because I'm also someone who really likes to think of problems ahead and then have solutions in place to the problems so that I know what I would need to do in order to prepare. But this change had so many problems to think about in advance that it was impossible to think of solutions altogether. And that's also something that I found really difficult at the time, to make a decision knowing that I would encounter really fundamental problems and that I don't really have big solutions for that in place, and that was stressing me out. Apart from the whole thing of, you know, quitting the job, moving countries, moving cities, starting all over, living by myself, finding a new apartment, this, that. And what really sucked about this, I have to say, is that while something super exciting was going on, something very sad was going on at the same time, knowing that I had to leave a life behind that I was super keen on and that I had worked for a lot as well, just to make a clean cut and do something entirely different. And that came with a lot of grief. So I got in, but then came all the big what ifs. What if I fail? What if I run out of money? What if I'm really not good at natural sciences? What if everybody's gonna laugh at me that I'm this grandma going back to dentistry school? What if I don't find any friends? What if it's just going to be this horrendous experience, and after a few months I'll have to tell myself that I'm not good enough and that all of this is not going to work out, because then I'm left with nothing, or at least it felt as though I was left with nothing. That was scary. That was very, very scary, especially also from someone who was at the time very risk averse, and financial security or stability meant a lot to me. Also knowing what's ahead of me was important, and all of that was just gone by making that decision. So since it was so difficult for me to come up with solutions and to actually find out if this is really something I should do or whether this would be the biggest mistake ever, I remember I was talking to friends constantly about it, but also to my work colleagues that had just more life experience by being 10 years or more older than me. That was really helpful, I have to say, because everybody was just so supportive and excited, and that's something that I found quite surprising, that even though I think everybody was secretly happy not to be in my position, everybody was just super supportive. But there was one moment in particular that I remember that really turned out to be a game changer, and I remember I was talking to my colleague Sanna, and I told her about this whole thing and of not knowing what to do, and presented her with my big what ifs and how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that. And she said something that really changed everything, which was, life presents its solutions as you go. That was just something that really cleared it up, and I was thinking, okay, if she's right, then let's try this. And I have to say now, in hindsight, that's exactly how it went, because even though some of the problems I had envisioned beforehand really turned out to be true and were of course something that I needed to be thinking about, there were so many other problems that I had no idea would be even existing. And so this whole thing of, you know, having the perfect plan and finding several solutions to one problem at the same time, it would have been a complete waste of time, because some of the stuff that actually happened I could have never foreseen, and thank God I wasn't able to foresee it, because I don't think, had I known everything in advance, I don't think I could have made the decision and just say, okay, let's see what happens, you know? And so sometimes it's really good that you don't know everything beforehand. So I did the move, I quit my job, I, you know, left my apartment, I moved to a city I had only been to once before, like 10 years before that, not thinking I would ever live there, in a completely foreign area of Germany than the one I used to grow up in. I remember for the last weeks and days before I went on that plane to Dresden, I was just in robot mode. I stopped thinking about the whole thing and just did. I just executed what I needed to do and didn't think much about it anymore because it was just too much. That really helped. Had I really stopped and thought of everything, I think it would have made it 1,000 times more difficult. And so yeah, that's why it was just eyes on the prize, just executing what needed to be done. Arriving in Dresden, I remember I was telling my friends that I feel like a foreigner in my own country because Dresden is obviously so different from Helsinki. And even though I was also ready to, you know, leave Helsinki, I had never thought that I would end up in Dresden. That was difficult. Of course, it was difficult to start all over again. I remember for the first 6 months, it felt like hell. And after that, it felt a little bit less like hell, but it still didn't feel like I made a great decision. It felt like I had completely thrown away my life and made the absolute worst decision of my life. And while all of my other friends are getting married, having their first kids, buying their first homes, I'm taking part in freshman week with 17, 18, 19-year-olds and taking part in chemistry and physics classes that I thought I'd never had to attend to anymore. So that was super difficult. And I remember I called my best friend asking her how embarrassing it would be if I quit after 2 weeks. Luckily, she said it would be very embarrassing and that I should stick around for the first semester, and if by the end of the first semester I have failed all of my exams and I'm about to be kicked out of dentistry school, then I can think about quitting. That was something I could deal with, so I was like, okay, let's check the first semester. And then the first semester went by and I passed all of my exams, and then I passed the second semester and the third, and then at some point things worked themselves out. Like, I found a way on how to support myself financially. I found friends. It turned out that I wasn't the only one at that age that went back to school, and even older than 27. Having a community, having people who help you, having people who are in the same boat as you are really helped. That's something I could not have really foreseen. So fast forward to now, I'm a dentist. I have been a dentist for the past 2 years. Everything worked out in the end, and I have to say my perspective on things really changed, and thank God they did. But also looking back, I have to say 27 is not old. You're still a little puppy dog at 27. I hate to say it, but it is kind of true. And so it really shows that age is not an excuse, really. I don't think there's a thing as being too old for something. At the same time, it's also important to note that life doesn't need to progress in a linear fashion. It can go up and down, you can go left and right, and it doesn't make you any less of a person. Quite the contrary. Also, I'm thinking, you know, I often catch myself thinking, or like having a bit of this tense feeling, thinking, oh my God, what if I hadn't made that decision all these years ago? What if I hadn't gone to dentistry school? Because even though dentistry school sucked, I have to say, it was strict, it was not very encouraging. More or less everyone is going to tell you the studies sucked, but the job is incredibly great. And I agree with that. While I didn't enjoy dentistry school, I made tons of new friends, got to know all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And the idea that I almost didn't do it really scares me, because what would I have done then? And now I'm so happy with how everything had worked out. And I don't know if I'm really proud of myself, but it really does something to you when you can prove to yourself that you're capable of doing something where you previously hadn't thought that you'd be able to do it. This gives you a feeling of security in yourself that is really powerful. It's really nice, and I'm I'm just really glad I did it, even though a lot of odds that I made for myself were speaking against it. And also the friends that I had that shared a similar timeline as I did back in the days. Some of these friends who got married back in the days are now going through their divorce, or actually a lot of them are also going back to university. And they're doing right now what I did 7 years ago. And now I'm looking at them thinking I'm really happy that I don't have to do that again. So while I don't think it turned me into a better person, it definitely turned me into a braver person. So it really helped stretching my neurons a little bit and moving away from a fixed mindset to more of a growth learning type of mindset. I have to say, I also wouldn't shy away too much from doing it again, because I know that certain things will work out and there is solutions to be found to all kinds of problems, and life goes on. So I don't know anything about your situation, but if you find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of what ifs, and if only I had become XYZ, or if only I would start doing XYZ, then I'm here to tell you that maybe it's time that you take action and try it out. So while I stand that it's not everybody's dream to become a dentist, I get it. I hope that by sharing my story, you have another real life example of somebody who went through what you're maybe thinking you're going to go through. And I have to say, it absolutely paid off, and I'd never choose differently. So let me know if you're in a similar situation. Let me know if you have any questions regarding anything specific of this video. I hope you have a great day. Be brave, do the change you need to do. I don't know why my neighbor keeps drilling today. It's super annoying. I hope it doesn't bother you too much. And I see you in my next video. So bye for now, and let me know who you are. Bye.